Hi there, everyone. My name is Karina, and I live in Western Washington State with my partner, my two kitties, and two horses. I am recording on Thursday, September 21st, 2022, and welcome to my podcast. The title of this is episode 14, by the way. The title of this episode is 4 Whips, 2 FOs, and Vacation. So, welcome everyone. And if you're returning, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate that. For new viewers, this podcast is primarily about my knitting projects, any gardening that I've been doing, cooking, which I am usually inspired by gardening, and also my horsemanship journey with my two horses, Odin and Bragi, the Mustangs. They are Mustangs that I adopted from the Bureau of Land Management Wild Horse Adoption Program. For more information about that, I will provide a link in the description box. So welcome. Today is the first day of fall, and it is definitely fall out there. And I have to admit, I am grateful for that. Summer is not my favorite season. I enjoy the amount of daylight we get, but my preferred temperature range is about between 55 and 75, and our summers have been getting warmer as they are in other northern climates in the world. So I definitely prefer fall and spring. So yay for spring. It's cloudy out. It's kind of seems a little moody out there. It's still very dry, and but I'm hoping that the extra moisture in the air kind of clears out the smoke from the wildfires. So now that I've caught you up on all of that, let me say I am trying out a new camera. Normally I record this on my phone, but I thought I would try the camera on my computer, and we'll see how that goes. So if I'm fiddling, that is why. But the first thing I want to show you is a finished object. So this sweater is called Udina. I finished this at least a couple years ago, possibly even 2019. The pattern is by Barocco. I thought I had it in my stuff being an accurate description of how I file things, but I don't have it handy. But you know, if you can see this, but it's a cable. It's basically a 3/4 sleeve, just cable in the front, very kind of elaborate cable pattern, and that was surprisingly easy to knit. This was probably a free pattern, so if you are interested in it, I recommend going to the Barocco.com website and looking for that pattern. So that will also be in the description box. And the yarn was a Barocco wool yarn. I don't have the label for that anymore either. My other finished object are the stripy socks that I made. I've been wearing these, but this yarn is West Yorkshire Spinners. I think this yarn was Tequila Sunrise, the self-striping yarn, and then the heel and the little bit of cuff that I did is in sarsaparilla. So you might remember, if you have seen my previous episodes, somehow I managed to make a very pointy-toed sock. Well, I ripped that out, so now I have two socks that are that have these nice square toes. These are a little bit big for me, so I still need to adjust the gauge. But you know, they are definitely fit my feet. They're very comfortable. I prefer them to be a little loose. They are, and the sun's coming in. Hello, sun. And I made them kind of a short, they're a little bit shorter than calf length, but longer than shorty socks. This is about the right length for me. They just go above my ankle, and they don't slide into my shoes. So I like that. The needles I use are Flexi Flips. They are Flexi Flips. So they are size US size 1. So these are, which is 2.5 millimeters. And so this is what they look like. And I use 3 of these. So two of the needles hold the yarn, and then the third one is the knitting needle. So I find these easier than just regular double pointed needles. And I will bring these out again when I go over my whips. So that is it for finished objects. I guess I could stand up and kind of show you the length of it. So yeah, this is the cable pattern. So first day of fall, and it's sweater weather again. Super happy about that. So what do I have for works in progress? I promised 4 of them, and there are indeed 4. I thought I had 5, but apparently I don't count above 3 very well. And you should see the floor because I have it all kind of lined up, and everything's in bags because I have 2 wonderful little kitties, both of whom who like to eat yarn, especially if it's an animal fiber. They don't seem to bother acrylic, but I frankly don't knit in acrylic very often. So let's go for my Songbird mittens that I've been working on. I am almost done with these, so super happy about these. I may even finish it tomorrow. So the left one is done. Here is the right one. This is a pattern by Erica Heusel. This is this is stranded color work. So you can see the songbird pattern, and then you can see this pattern in the front, and this kind of nice pointy. It fits my fingers very well. This is a very snug fit. I would say that I have medium to large hands in the women's size, and if you have larger hands than I do, you would have to adjust the pattern. So this will be perfect for what I need to do. It gives me ample dexterity. But if it was any smaller, it would be a little, probably not be that comfortable. But for my purposes, these are great. I only have like 10 or 15 more rows left of the thumb. So like I said, I will definitely this will be a finished object next week. So super excited about that. And then I can use these needles. These are Addy Flexi Flips, 2.75 millimeter needles that I use for kind of a heavier fingering weight sock yarn. So that's really fun. So then that heavier sock yarn is typically Patton's Croy, which I am beginning to appreciate Patton's Croy. I've made a couple pairs of socks out of Patton's Croy. They tend to be a little bit heavier, so I haven't worn any. They would just be too warm for summertime. But they have a nice kind of elasticity to them. So I definitely appreciate that feeling on my foot. And they seem to be a little bit more form-fitting. So another whip that I have is another sock. So these are made out of some hand-dyed yarn from Skein Tipple. This is a local yarn store on Whidbey Island. I acquired this yarn in July. So I do have one finished sock. I don't have sock blockers, which is why I use my hand. Again, I have a cat that's trying to steal some yarn, and I don't want him to steal my new acquisitions because I have a lot to show you. Anyway, this is the finished sock. So I do the heel flap and gusset, So I find that very easy. I have to admit I'm a little bit intimidated by the afterthought heel, and the heel flap and gusset. I don't find to be a problem at all. And again, I have kind of a square toe, and these are a little bit of a loose fit, so kind of nice for this time of year. And this is just a really pretty speckled yarn with green accents. So what I need to do is I need to finish this sock before October 1st, because then it's the Bakery Bears Sockaween knit along, and I have yarn for that, and I will show you that. I have a little stinker here who wants to dig into some yarn, so excuse me while I rescue my yarn. For new listeners, I have a few actual bags. So my mom made this bag for me. My mom's a quilter, and she made this nice bag for me. This is my sock bag or other small project bag. Otherwise, I tend to use canvas bags. And the kitty cat is leaning against two of them, the two that I've already shown you. So I won't disturb him, but I will show you this one. So this is and this bag is just a city of Thousand Oaks, California. I lived down there for a few years in the 2000s, and this was, you know, kind of the beginning of the bring your own grocery bags. So, but I happen to use these as yarn bags because I love the canvas. And I have other I have plenty of grocery bags, so don't worry. I use my own grocery bags. In this project bag is the Lola top. This is a summer top, and I may be a little late for that, by Kutovakika. She is a Finnish designer. And this is a paid for pattern, as is the Songbird Mittens. That is also a paid for pattern that you can find on Ravelry. Here is the picture of the Lola top. So I am using a cotton yarn, and that is what the pattern calls for. It's a repurposed yarn, so I have no idea what the weight is. And I've kind of put it in the opposite color scheme that the designer has. But this is what I have so far. So it is knit. The front side, or the top part of it's in pieces. So this is the top. This will be up by my collarbones with the straps going over, and then it becomes knitted in the round. I confess I did not knit a gauge swatch. I'm not particularly that worried about it, because when I knit the Adeline top by Barocco, which I showed in the last video, I was able to make adjustments as necessary by putting in some side panels. Just a note on that, I think if I was putting in side panels again, I would just, rather than trying to attach it as I was knitting, which kind of ended up looking a little sloppy, I would just knit the panels and then attach them, either sew or crochet. I prefer to crochet when I'm knitting flat and putting the pieces together. I prefer to crochet them together just with a kind of a slip stitch. I think that works. It looks very tidy, and apparently I crochet more evenly than I sew. The pattern calls for 2 strands of cotton yarn held together. Like I said, I don't know what the gauge of this is. Probably should have knit a gauge swatch, but I didn't. I tried holding 2 together. I didn't like the way it felt. So I think this yarn is plenty thick to stand on its own in a single strand, which gives me confidence that I will have enough. Because again, I don't really know how much I have. What I do have is 2 bags of all these little balls of yarn. So I will have a million ends to sew in. It's fine. It's part of the deal. And since I'm no longer in a rush to finish a summer top, since it'll probably be next July before I can wear it, you know, I can just work on that as I please. So my 4th whip is Ghost Horses by Caitlin Hunter. I think this was a paid for pattern, but I don't honestly don't remember. I have started and restarted this sweater numerous times. And I made a mistake on it. So it had a timeout while I rested my brain on it. But while I was on vacation this last week, I corrected the mistake and put it back on the needles. My one criticism for this pattern is that it does not have yoke depth. So I am going to use a raglan pattern for a successful raglan pattern to measure the yoke. But here is the yoke as I have done it, and you can see there is this stripe. Let's see if I can do this. Again, I'm a little bit limited because I do the filming myself, so you can see the horses in this particular panel. So pretty cool. So this is where I had to rip back to. So I had the yoke, this red thread here is where I had to rip back to. And I left that in there as a lifeline. So I'm continuing to expand the yoke, and I will try this on. I have a rough measurement that I'm using, and so I will continue the yoke and then divide for the sleeves after I finish that. The other thing I wanted to show is two-stranded color work. So I started watching the Knitting Man podcast because it was recommended by Seedling Stitch podcast as a way to steek using crochet as a panel. I haven't got to that episode yet. I've watched the first 2 episodes, and apparently the steeking, which is cutting your yarn to put a hole in it. And the idea is that you knit in the round, which is much easier if you're doing stranded color work, rather than knitting back and forth and having to purl. I can purl, it's just not as much fun. But I have frankly been a bit intimidated by steeking because I don't sew. That is the typical way that people steek, is that the part that they're going to cut, they reinforce it with a sewing machine. Well, I don't have a sewing machine. I don't know how to sew. So I have avoided steeked projects. But I am very much encouraged that the Knitting Man has a technique by which you can use crochet, because I do know how to crochet to protect your steeks. So the other thing that the Knitting Man did is that he showed how to capture your floats. So when you are doing two-stranded color work, and I'm showing this to you upside down, you have the front side that has the pattern, and here are my upside down horses. And then you have the back side, which has a lot of floats. And you can see that my floats I have captured them. The back side's very tidy. So I was going to attempt to do a demonstration on this, showing two-handed color work. The Knitting Man knits, I think he said English style, and I don't necessarily, I know there's English style and continental, and there's Norwegian, and then there's probably other names. I am not particularly clear on what exactly all of those mean. All I know is that I learned how to knit right-handed. And then when I started doing stranded color work, not too long ago, I learned how to knit left-handed as well. I think that's a very useful skill to have. But be assured, if you are very much right-handed, you can go to the Knitting Man YouTube channel and see how he does stranded color work doing just completely English style. There is also Norwegian style knitting, which is left-handed. That might also be called continental. I'm not sure. If any of you know for sure, you are welcome to let me know in the comments what that is. So just to say, what I do is that I have my main color, which is this dark color, and I have my contrasting color, which is this light color. I'm going to attempt to do this on this camera that I have and avoid having either cat decide to play or eat my yarn. So we will see how this goes. So what I have is the contrasting color in my left hand. Oh, and I also wanted to say before I get started is that if you want to learn left-hand knitting, I found Arne and Carlos's video tutorial on Norwegian knitting to be very helpful. I don't do it exactly the way they do it, but it's close. So, I cannot knit without wrapping yarn around my little pinkies. So, so what I'm doing, the pattern calls, in this particular row of the pattern, calls for knit 3 in the main color and knit 1 in the contrasting color, the white. So what that would normally look like if you didn't carry your floats is that you would knit 3 and then you would have this float of white that is 3 strands long. So what I do is, okay, I'm going to knit 1 in the main color. Okay, just knit. For the second one, I am going to hold that contrasting color between the needles, but I'm not going to really do anything with it. And then I'm going to wrap the main color around the needle. That's the one that's going to be knit. And then I unwrap the contrasting color and pull the main color through. So that holds that float. The next one, you just knit. And then I'm going to knit the contrasting color. So hopefully you can see that. So I'm going to do it again. So main color, just knit, put the needle through the stitch as if you're going to knit the main color, but I'm going to put the contrasting color between the needles, wrap the main color, and then unwrap that contrasting color and pull the main color through. That's how you do that. You get really fast at it. The next one, you just knit as normal, and then it's contrast color. Okay, so that's how you get the tidy ones. I'm going to do this one more time just for fun. So I'm just knitting the main color. I'm putting the needle through in the stitch as if to knit, but I'm putting that contrast color between the needles, not doing anything with it, just holding it there, wrapping the main color around, and then to capture that contrast color and unwrapping it. And there we go. And then the next one, you just knit the main color, and then it's time to knit the contrast color. So that's how you do that. Again, if you have any comments about how to do that, feel free. I am pleased to report that neither cat seemed particularly interested in that fun little knitting demonstration. So we can move on. Those are my whips. So cast on, future cast-ons. So I mentioned Sockaween, which is a knit-along hosted by the Bakery Bears. I have their YouTube channel linked in the description box. So if you wish to join that, I would encourage you to do that. So I have some new acquisitions. I have a lot of new acquisitions. Typically, I like to use my stash yarn to knit because I have some that I just bought. Oh, that's pretty yarn. I need it. Absolutely need it, even though I don't have a project in mind. I also, get yarn from people who no longer knit and they just want to give me their nice yarn that I don't know what to do with until a project inspires me. And then when I go on vacation, I tend to visit local yarn stores and buy interesting yarn. So for the knit along, the Sockaween, I actually had this yarn dyed. It was a request. This is a hand dyer who lives I think he lives in Houston, Texas. It's by Nativity. And I just asked for Halloween colors. So I asked for it's a dark color for, Halloween night. I asked for orange for the jack-o'-lantern. I asked for yellow because jack-o'-lanterns typically have a candle in them. And then green for the leaf. So that's what I asked for, and that's what he gave me. And I'm super excited to wind this into a ball. I don't have a yarn winder. I thought about getting one, but honestly, I just typically part of the project is unfurling the skein and putting it on the back of a chair and winding it up. So for a contrast color, I didn't have a contrast color, but this is one of the kinds of yarn I got. So this is kind of an odd contrast color, but it's going to stand out. So I will see if I like this when I put them together. We'll see. It's a little bit of an orangey red, so I'm kind of hoping it works with the colors. This is one of the yarns I bought from, sorry, I'm checking the kitties. I bought from the yarn store I visited while I was on vacation. The yarn store's name is Utopia, E-W-E, as in, a sheep, Utopia. And it's located in Viroqua, Wisconsin, which is where I went on vacation with my family, my mom and my sister in particular. So this yarn is made in Finland. It's Tuku wool, and it is 80% Finnish wool and 20% polyamide. So if I don't use it for this, if I ended up not using it as a contrast color for this sock, sure I will find something for it. So another, because I can't help myself and I was on kind of a yarn buying spree, I bought another hand-dyed yarn from Knittivity, and I have the link to that in, sorry for all the crinkling, in the description box. So this is another pretty yarn. So I'm kind of on a pink and yellow roll right now. This is 75% Corriedale and 25% nylon. So again, hand-dyed yarn. And Legacy Fiber knits, or Legacy Fibers, also associated with Legacy Knits, was also promoting some recently dyed fall colors or Halloween colors. So I got this sock set. So this is 4-ply fingering weight, 75-25 merino nylon. Hand-dyed yarn. They add sparkles, which I think is pretty cool. And the name of this colorway is called Smell My Feet, which if you ever watch their podcast, Legacy Knits, that just sounds very typical of them, and I love it. So what else have I bought? Because I've been on a buying spree, I kind of have started some Christmas shopping too. So I bought this lace weight yarn from a local alpaca farm that spins their own yarn. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it yet. These are natural colors. So this is a chocolate brown, and a black. This is South Fork Farms, which is, and I should put the website in my description box. Hopefully I will remember to do that. This is a two-ply lace weight yarn. Has 590 yards for a 4-ounce skein. This is the black, and it says the name of the animal. Puna is the name of the alpaca that donated this. So she got a haircut. I assume it's she. I don't know though, actually. And then this 2-ply lace weight yarn is 370 yards for approximately 4 ounces skein. And this one was donated by Dante, the alpaca. And this chocolate brown is also donated by Dante. It's very nice fiber. So I could hold 3 together possibly to get something pretty. I could make a very lovely lacy shawl out of these 3 colors, just for, fall, winter. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. So I said I was kind of Christmas shopping, but that is could very well be a lie. And it could be just for me. A Christmas present for me. So, um, what else did I do? So while I was in Viroqua, Wisconsin with my mom and my sister, we stayed at an Airbnb near the Utopia yarn store, which was very convenient. One thing I find is that I typically pay, the yarn prices are a little bit lower. Sorry, the sun is just sort of shining on me. I'm having a hard time seeing, but hopefully you can see. But I tend to pick out a few patterns and buy yarn. I did buy sock yarn. So this is a sock yarn. The tag is in the middle. And this is the contrasting color that is that the same kind of the tuku, the Finnish fiber. But let me see what this sock yarn is. It is a superwash merino wool, 20% nylon. It's called Wisco sock. So it is hand dyed in small pots and metal free professional acid dyes that have superior color fastness and vibrancy of color. This makes your yarn safe for the environment and also for you. I really appreciate that. I would like to support yarn dyers who are able to use these types of dyes, and I realize that these are probably more expensive, but here is the label. Utopia. It's backwards on my side. I hope you can see it. It's located in Viroqua, Wisconsin on Main Street. So and I don't see, charcoal is the colorway. That is what I was looking for. So pair of socks. Not sure exactly when I'm going to knit those. There's plenty of projects. So more yarn that I bought. I got a catalog from Barocco a couple years ago. It was during the pandemic. I remember that. It could have been 2020. And I have some of this Arno yarn, Barocco Arno yarn, which is a cotton and wool blend. And this is a sweater. So I have black that I actually bought for different projects, but I didn't like the pattern. So the yarn went on a timeout, and then I saw this pattern. It's like, ooh, perfect. I can make that. This is what the yarn calls for, or the pattern calls for. It's 57% cotton and 43% merino wool. So the contrasting color, like I said, I have the black. So for the yoke, I got this green color. And Barocco has, they have their colors as numbers. So it's number 5072. It's got, it has kind of like, I don't know, what I would call almost an olive green tone to it, kind of stripes and just kind of a more of a bluey green. But I thought it would go very well with black and be a good contrast for that sweater. And then, because Barocco has a lot of free patterns, they emailed, if you subscribe to their newsletter, they offered this as a free pattern download. So this is Crossvine. It's the yarn that they recommend is Barocco Remix. The yarn store, Utopia Fiber, did not have that. So upon my mom and my sister's advice, I got this kind of dark green color. So I am kind of on green mode right now. And this is Ultra Alpaca Chunky, and it has the same gauge, stitch gauge as the Remix. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. This is similar to the other one. It has more blue green, but then it has some darker and a little bit of olive green and maybe even a little teal in there as well to make a very pretty combination. So those are my yarn acquisitions. Yeah, quite a lot for me. I don't normally buy this much yarn at one time. Pardon the crinkling. I'm at 35 minutes right now. So I just want to talk about my vacation a little bit. I took some time off before my trip to Wisconsin to visit family, and I had some work done on the horse paddocks to help prevent the usual muddy mess that's out there in the wintertime. I got a grant from the local conservation district to help with that, since we have two salmon streams that run through our property. And the goal is to reduce the impact from any of your activities to that salmon stream. So they provided some funding to redo about 800 square feet. Is that right? 80 by 20? That sounds about right. It's not quite that much. 800 square feet of paddock where the boys can be out of the mud. It's just right in front of their stalls, and have dry places. Not only does it help prevent pollution getting into the salmon streams, but it also is better for their feet to have be able to get out of the mud. They're Mustangs. They have very good feet, but occasionally, if it was really stinking wet this spring, and one of them got an abscess. And that's very ouchy for them. So hopefully having a dry place to stand will help them with that. The mud and the constant wet tends to make their hooves a little more soft than normal. This time of year, when it's really dry, their hooves are very, very hard and resistant to any, foreign objects getting in there. So anyway, that is the first thing that we did, or I did. So that only took like a day and a half, so that was really great. The second thing that we did is that Randy and I went on a canoe trip with some friends, just down a local river. Kind of rookie error. Neither one of us are experienced paddlers, but we have enough common sense to know that we don't want to do a paddle a river that's in flood stage, or even, spring melt or anything like that. So summertime, low river levels, low flow is ideal. And we have friends who are very experienced paddlers who do river kayaking, but recently bought a canoe, come up and go on this trip with us. And the distance between where we started and the ending point, I thought it was going to be like 8 to 10 miles and would only take a couple hours. Well, so it ended up being like 16 miles and taking almost 7 hours. So we were all pretty tired from that, but it was beautiful. We saw lots of fish. There's, I don't remember what kind of salmon are coming up the river right now, but lots of fish and lots of fishermen. So it was really beautiful, and hopefully at the end of this video I will include some photos from that trip. Let me see, what else do I have going on? So gardening is kind of winding down. My tomatoes are getting ripe, yay! And I've still harvested a couple zucchini. I have some cabbage that I can harvest, and then just kind of the standard greens and herbs. And flowers. So I made myself a bouquet of dahlias and sunflowers and sedum that produces some really nice pink flowers, and also chives, which are an herb and they flower. So they have a pretty purple flower too. That has been gardening. I do intend to do some gardening in the wintertime, but probably mostly just greens and herbs. Cooking projects. So I made a really simple lasagna. Just open a jar of sauce, browned some grass-fed ground beef, and kind of layered it in with some cottage cheese and noodles and a bunch of different kinds of cheese, and put it in the oven So you don't have to boil the noodles. All you do is you put a cup and a half of boiling water over the top of it before you stick in the oven and put foil over it. And it bakes very nicely in an hour and a half. And then you just take the foil off and let the cheese melt and brown a little bit. Very tasty. Also, the Seattle Times featured a Don't Want to Cook cookbook, and a recipe was a feta whip dressing, which is a combination of a cup of feta that you crumble and 3/4 of a cup of yogurt, and then some lemon zest or lemon juice, depending if you want a dip or a dressing. Salt and pepper, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and it calls for dried oregano. I didn't have any, so I used dried thyme, and whirred that around in the food processor, and it ended up with a delicious dressing. So, because I used lemon juice in addition to, well, actually, I didn't use any zest because I had used the lemon zest for something else and had the lemon. So, the horses know that winter is coming, and they have started to grow in their winter coats. They're very fuzzy, and fly season is thankfully ending. So hopefully Bragi's skin allergies will also come to a halt once the bugs stop bugging him. Poor guy. He is very sensitive, and he has an itchy tummy most of the summer, which I do everything I can to try to alleviate that itch, but sometimes it's just not enough. I hope to do a little bit more trail riding on Odin, and I am working with Bragi on trailer training. So he's really good about getting his front feet in the trailer, but the full commitment he's not sure about. But there's no rush. So I just want this to be as easy for him as possible. So that is all I have for today. I hope this video works out. So we will see if how this computer camera works. In the description box, I will have resources, a list of resources for any horsemanship and knitting and gardening channels that I watch. And also the best way to reach me if you are interested. So see you next time. Bye.